the environment. So here I have my terminal. And the first thing will be creating my project, and I'll name, so I'll start by creating the folder where we'd save our project. So I'll name it team task manager, and I'll cd to the directory where. So after creating that folder, the first thing will be to git init for us to track our changes. And so let's check if the git is initialized, and you can see there it was successfully initialized. So, and the first thing will be to create a directory for our document, and I'll cd to that directory called docs, and I'll make another directory inside it we call it product, and within that I'll create a readme file, and sorry, I created it in the wrong directory. So is this the best way to, are we supposed to use mv, or let me try it. So I'll readme.md, then I'll move it to product, and when we erase, yeah, so now you can cd to the product, and there it is. So I'll use Vim to edit the markdown file. So I'll say Vim, and I click I on my keyboard for it now to go in the insert mode, since now I'm already I'm using Vim to edit. And then here I will create my heading, and my heading will be, this will be the product overview, for you now to give you a general explanation of what you are going to expect in this project. So then I'll create a subheading, and I'll call it vision. And then the next thing now will be to give you an overview of what our project is. So our vision is to build a modern collaboration tool for teams. So this will be the vision of, or by the end of the project, what we should have achieved. So, and then so after writing the vision, I'd go on and create the problem you are going to solve, because as we said, each project you build should try to solve a real world problem. So, and then we can say, so let me go up here, add a line, after here maybe add a line, and let's say team struggle with ownership, visibility, and workflow clarity. And now remember, after writing the problem, now this is the problem you are going to solve in our app. So the problem we're going to solve is making sure that our solves ownership, visibility, and workflow clarity in teams. And after writing the problem now, I'll give you also an overview of the core workflow. And the first one will be create a workspace. Then the next one should be invite members. The third one is inside the workspace. Now you are able to create project. And the next is now, after creating the project, is assign tasks to the members who are in that workspace now. And then the last one should be to track progress of the task assigned to different members. So remember I'm using Vim, so I'll click escape, then type :WQ to exit, to save and exit Vim. So, and maybe I should create another file. So we're already in the product. I should go back to the docs folder, create another directory, and call it architecture, for you to also give you an overview of the architecture you're going to follow. So I'll call it, I'll create a directory called architecture. And then the next thing will be to now create a readme file, a readme.md file. And also we are going to use Vim to edit this. So I'll just, and then I'll click I to enter into insert mode. And then the first thing will be now to create the heading, and I'll call it architecture overview. So if you have any question, you can just type on the chat. And then I'll just have a subheading called system. And for the client, I use Next.js. And then for the API, I'll use express.js. And then for the database, I'm going to use NoSQL MongoDB. So some of the key concepts we should look at is, remember this is a SaaS project, so it will be a multi-tenant, and then we'll have some workspace isolation, and then we'll have some role-based access. And the last thing is, maybe for the authentication, we'll have some cookie-based authentication. So we'll have a token saved in the cookie, and it will be attached in the request. So when sending a request in the API that needs some authentication, we'll just have to look into the cookie if the token is valid. So, and maybe we should have some goals here, is build something which will allow scalability in the future. And then maybe, and then also have some, because maybe we would like to, so we should, so the way we write code will be able for us to allow maintainers not to have our own time, so maintainability, and for sure you would like to have a secure app. So I'll exit there and save the changes. So the next thing we should be looking at, so I'll go back to the root directory. So let me have tree, then that. So inside our root directory for now we have a docs folder, and inside it I made some errors here. So the readme file that should be in the docs directory, I have them in the same directory. So I'll just cd to docs. So and the rest, as you can see. So now I should take this readme and now take it to the architecture folder. So I'll just say mv. So and then readme. And then say architecture. So and then when we rest now, everything looks fine. So if you go back to the root directory and tree, okay, now everything looks fine right now. So the next thing now will be inside the root directory. I'll create another folder and we call it server, and this is where we have our server. So inside our app, that's where we will set up our server. So what I want us to do is just set up our server for now, and then after our server is set up, we'll come back and work on the API architecture. And I'll take you, and first we design the API, the API, some things like database schema, the endpoint. Yeah, but for now, let's just set up the server. So if you have any question, you can just ask in the chat. So you've already created that a folder in the root directory called server. So I'll just cd in the server. So the first thing inside the server, I'll just have to initialize npm. I'll just npm init y. So I guess after initializing that, I guess for now, I won't be using Vim to edit my code. I just maybe create an instance of my VS Code, because now for me now to use Vim to edit the code, it will be so untidy. So I guess it will be looking good on VS Code. So I'll just open this on VS Code. A minute, let me share my screen. So just give me a minute as I share my screen. A minute as I try to share my VS Code screen. Yeah, so I just initialized it, and right now it created a package.json file. So I'll make my code a bit big for it to be readable. And then maybe I'll just minimize this here over here. And then, okay, now maybe some of the few things I should add here is to make the type. Should make the type module. Should it be types or type? Maybe let me check. Okay, guess it should be type, yeah. So, and then after doing that, the next thing now to be, after initializing that, the next thing should be now to install the dependencies. So I'll just open my terminal over here on my VS Code to avoid going back. So I'll just open a terminal here inside VS Code and maybe work from here. Oh, one more thing here is just do away with this. It should be type now. So I've seen it here. So and then change this to module now for us to use the ES6 syntax. Okay, so right now in this directory inside our server, the next thing now should be to npm install express for us to set up our API. So express and .env for us now to import our env files from the .env file. And after that, maybe I'll install HTTPS. I'll install HTTP status codes. So you don't have to install the HTTP status code. It's just something I'm used to. It makes my work more easier. So I'll just install that. And as that is installing, maybe okay, so and we will check now. So we have .env, express, and HTTP status. And also in this project, I'm going to use TypeScript. So I'll just install TypeScript. So, and then remember TypeScript is a dev dependencies. A dev dependency, so we should add the defrag for dev dependencies. And then I'll just have TypeScript. And the other thing would be the TSX. So the TSX, it's a modern alternative of the TS node, and then I'll just install. So I have already, so if you don't have node mod for now, you can just install it as a dev dependency into a project. But for I have already installed it globally. So the next thing just will be to install the types. So I'll install types for the node types. And the next types I'll install are for Express. Yeah, so I'll just install those for dev dependencies. So the TypeScript, this allows us to compile TS to JS. For the TSX, it helps us to run TS directly in development mode. And then I have these node types and also the express types. So once we have that, once we have those four is, I guess now the next thing should be to create another, the next thing should be to create a folder. So I just use this. So I just create a folder called source, and this inside there it's where we have our source code, and after that inside it I'll create an index.ts file. So this is where we'll be setting our server. Okay, so I just import. So the first thing will be to import Express, and I'll say import Express from Express. Okay, and then now the next thing will be to so we've just installed express.env and HTTP status. So the next thing now it will be to import .env from .env, and then I'll just import status codes from HTTP status. So the next thing will be to create the app instance. So I'll just create create an instance of the application app. So I just use Express, and then I'm using my Copilot. It's already on. So I guess let me for now have it as let it snooze for 1 hour. So I'll have that Express. So let's even create here inside the server folder I'll create a .env file, and then I'll say port equals 3500. So our server will be running on that port. So the next thing now should be now to I'll just create a file here. Const port is equals to process.env.port, and if we don't have it, let it default to 3005. And here I'll create the home endpoint. So I'll say app.get. So this will help us to test our home endpoint. So to see the server if it's running, and I'll say request, and then response. So, and I'll respond with res.get status. So this is a method of the response object. So I'll say status codes dot okay. And then the next thing is I want my data as JSON. So I'll return a JSON. And I'll say, so this will be an object, so I'll say success equals true. And then add another, so add a message to say, so the message is a string. So I'll just welcome to the API. And after that, I'll just try to run the server. So my server will be listening. So I'll say app.listen, then I'll pass my port, and I'll have a function here that just print to the console and says, so I'll use backticks. It looks more neat. So server is running on port. So since we use backticks, I'll have the variable inside there. So now you can maybe try to, so after doing that, one other thing I forgot is we didn't, so we installed the dev dependencies, but I haven't initialized the TypeScript. So what we did is just install the dev dependencies and forgot now to create also the ts.config file. So maybe I'll run this command. So on my terminal, I'll say npx tsc, and then I'll initialize it in it. So and then it created our tsconfig.json file. So I'll just select all these, and maybe let me first minimize here the height of my terminal. So on my tsconfig, I've just deleted everything, so I just want to make it a bit more neat. So I'll just have compiler options there, and I'll set my root directory to be in source, so that will be our root directory. And then the other thing will be our out directory. So inside the out directory, it's where our compiled code for, so when our code is compiled from TS to JS, so it will go in the dist folder. So it should be ./dist. And then now the other thing will be to set things like target. I just use ES 2022. Just have module as node. So the reason we have error is I forgot the comma. And then I'll have module resolution is node not next. I'll have the comma, and then I'll set the path, and then the paths will be so I'm setting the path because I just want to have clean imports in my app. So that's why I'm setting that. So, and also the types, yeah, I just want it to be node. So, yes. So 2022. Just have a source map of true. I'll have it stick to true. Skip to check is true. So I forgot the comma here. And then I have exact optional properties is true. So once again I forgot the comma. So the other thing will be now to set the ES module, interrupt, and I'll set it to true. Then resolve. Then I resolve to JSON module, and then I have it as to true. And after setting those compiler options, I'll just now add another. So I want it to include, I'll set include, and I want it to include my source folder and everything inside it. And I want it to exclude the node modules. So underscore modules. So, and also the dist. Yeah, and maybe after setting now those, having those settings, now the next thing now will to be to start running our server and to check if it's working. So if you have any question, ask in the chat. So I have an error here. Include, I want it to include the source folder. Okay, now it's working. Also this one and another there. So now the next thing we'll do, before running our server, we should be able to create our script. So I'll just have these as, so the first script will be on dev. Okay, let's start with the build script. The build script we run it when in production. So when building, and it will be TS and TSC, and then the next thing will be, we use TS as, because that's what we, yeah, we just have to TS as. This will be in the, when building our project. So and then the other thing will be after building, so we'll have a start command, and the start command also we run in production, and I'll just say node and then find the dist folder, and then inside it run index.js. And maybe for the dev command, I'll just create a separate file to have the dev script. So I'll say a node-mon, and I'll go back to the server folder, and inside there I'll create a file called nodemon.json. So, and inside the nodemon.json, that's where I'll create an object, and the first key will be watch, and our app should be able to watch everything in the source folder. And the other command is what it should execute. It should look for TS, JS, and JSON file. So all files with those extensions, and I want it to ignore the dist folder. Remember, the dist folder is created when we build our project. So, and in the dev, I want it to ignore that during, because this is a script for during development. And then I would say, so when we run this command, what it should execute. So I'll say it should execute, so it should run this command, tsx, then go to the source folder and find a file called index.ts, and that's what we have in our source folder. So we have already this file. So during development, remember this nodemon.json, I've created what should run when we run the script, npm run dev. So it should go and find this nodemon, and then here we have it here. So it should execute tsx, then source index.ts. So maybe if we try to run our app now, so I have an alias of nrd, just means npm run dev. So, and now we can see our server is running as we expected here. So everything looks okay. So maybe the next thing I'll just try to do is, after having those file changes, I'll just want to push this to my GitHub. So I'll just go to my GitHub, Yeah, so this is my GitHub. So I'll share the link to the repository I created later. So I'll just pin it in the description. So I'll just go to my GitHub, and that's where I'll create my a repo for us to push our changes. So I'll just call this team task manager, and then I'll just say a SaaS project for teams to so I'll just say for enabling teams to have a good workflow. So then I'll just have it to no. So I wouldn't add anything else. So I'll just create the repo. So the next thing will be I forgot one thing on my app. So I'll just go back to the VS Code. So I forgot one thing here is to create the root directory. So let me go back to my terminal. So let me go back to my terminal. So I'll just go to the root directory of our app, and inside there I'll just create a root readme file, because this is one of the most important things you shouldn't forget, the root readme file. And I'll just edit this one with Vim. This is a bit simple. So just go to the insert mode, and so have a heading there called team task manager, and let's say it's a production style, and it's somewhat mini style, production style mini SaaS, software as a service built. So I'm going to build it in Fabric. So I'll add those other details later. So now our app looks like this. Sorry for that. So I'll just go back to my so I'll just go back here, and I'll just go back to my so I'll just look for all the changes I've added. So also one file I should add here is a git ignore file dot ignore. So it's a git ignore because I don't want my git to track things like the node modules. Also, I don't want it to include the dist folder, the .env file. What else? I guess that is. So now maybe after having that, yeah, maybe I should create a .example .env file and have your port is equals to 3005. So okay, I think everything now looks fine. Before that, I guess now there is, so I'll just git add everything and check. So we have the readme file, we have the docs, we have the server. So we didn't, so the git didn't keep track of the .env. So the git ignore, okay. So I'll just, so GC is an alias for git commit. So and then it will open my Vim and I'll say environment setup. And write and quit. So before pushing, remember we haven't still yet, we haven't set the origin, or yeah, so the origin or where the remote repository where it is. So I'll just say git add, so it should be, or let me copy the command from GitHub. I'll just run that, or git remote add, yeah. So and then if we can check for that. So we've already have the origin. So the next thing will be to git push upstream origin and then in the main branch. So now if we try to go to our GitHub and refresh the page, so now we can see now our changes have been pushed successfully. And now I guess now the next thing will be to maybe inside here our okay, maybe I should close this for now. I should close this window and go back. So back I'd go now to my code, to my VS Code. And before maybe designing our database, one last thing I should maybe check. One thing I should give you an overview is maybe we should maybe look at the MVP overview of our app. So the MVP features. So there'll be the user authentication. So So once the user is authenticated, we will be able to create the workspaces. And once he has created the workspaces, he can now send invitations to members who want to be in the workspaces. And after creating, and then also you can now create the project inside the workspace and assign tasks. And the other thing would be to roles and permission. And maybe one thing also is keep track of maybe the task assigned. So inside this docs folder, we have, I guess I should create another folder here called the API, and no, guess that's not. So inside the server, so the next thing now, after having the overview of the MVP, so I'd earlier gone through designing the database. So it's something, so I'd create a folder called DB, and inside the DB, I want to create the model. So I created a file instead of a folder, so I'll just do away with that. Then go back again into the source folder, create a models folder. So, let it go. Then create a DB folder and move the models folder inside the DB. So for the database, you are going to use the MongoDB. And one thing is, I haven't installed, so I'm going to use Mongoose. And I haven't installed it. So that should be our next thing, is to install Mongoose. So I'll open my terminal here, and I'll say npm install, I'll say Mongoose. And I'll go to my package.json to see if it was successfully installed. Oh, sorry, I installed it in the wrong folder. Installed it in the root folder. I never looked at the terminal, so I have to do away with these new two files that were created. So I just set it to the server, and that's where we want our dependencies to be installed at. So I run again npm install mongoose and go to my package.json and make sure it has been installed. Yes, it's okay. So now the first thing is I'll start by creating the user schema, and it will be in the models. Then create a file called user.ts, and that's where we will define our user. So I'll import a few things from Mongoose. So I'll just import schema. So, and then also I'll install model and types. So the first thing is, since we are using TypeScript, and just I'd create an interface. And I'll call it interface. I'll just call it interface iUser, and the first key will be the ID. Should be a string. Then I'll just have the first name of the user, which also will be a string. So this will be the last name, which also will be a string. And the other thing will be an email, which should be a string. Then the password, and I'll say password hash, which also will be a string. And an avatar. So that makes this optional. So the avatar will be optional. That's why we have the question mark. And I'll have created that, which should be a string, and updated at, which should be a string. Okay, yeah, so I guess that's all for what we just need for our user. So we just create the model. So, and then I'll call it, it will be a constant, I'll just call it user schema. And I'll use the new keyword and then pass schema. And now its type will be the iUser, that will be the type. And after that, pass the parentheses, and inside the parentheses, we'll have an object. So the first name will be of type string. And it will be required, to true, and I want it to, before saving to the database, it should trim. So that means removing spaces before the first, any space before the first name and last name. So I'll just copy paste this. So for the email, I want it to be required to true, and then I want it also to be unique. So I don't want any two users having the same email. So yeah, I'll have unique, and make sure it is in lowercase. So we can't have an email in uppercase. Just to make sure of that, and then I'll say password hash, and then this will be type, string, and I want it to be required also. So true. So the other one thing is the avatar URL, which is optional, so we just check for the type. So after just checking for the type, the other thing is just to thing is just to have another object just for timestamps. So this will be, so any document saved in the database will have the created date and updated date set by default. That's why we have the timestamp. So as you can see now, we've created the user schema. We already have that. So after that, now we are able to create. After that, we are able to create now users in the schema. So, but one thing before I forget is inside the DB folder, inside this DB folder, I should create a file for configuring the database, and I'll just call it config.ts. So this will be the file we done for us to configure the database. So I'll just import mongoose from mongoose, and I'll create, so that it be export, and then I'll create const, and I'll call the function by the name of what it does. So it says connect to DB. So this is what this function does, and it is an asynchronous function. So I just add a try catch block there, and I await. Sorry. So inside the try block, I just await mongoose to connect to, let's call it the mongo underscore URI. So before that, I just go to my env file and have a variable here called mongo URI. So this is the URI for our database, and copy also that in the .env or .example.env. So let me import the mongo URI here. I think what I'll do is I'll go to the source folder and create a folder called const, now to avoid this error, constant. And I'll have it I'll have a file called index.ts. So, and I'll say const. Okay, let me just so yeah. And also this. And I'll go back to my configuration file and I'll just be importing them. So my constant from there. So I'll just import. So I forgot to export here. So I should just export. Forgot to export. Also for this. So now the other thing should be so import Mongo. From so and then you should do away with this right now. So I have an error here. So argument of the string or undefined is not assignable to a parameter of the string. Oh, okay. So the issue is I should give it a for case. So I'll just say, so I'll just add, if the variable is not here there in the .env file, I'll just say Mongo. I'll update this area, data, sorry. So I just have that way. So this for now is not a valid MongoDB database URL. So that's why I've just have it right now to do away with the error. So I'll just update it later. So just come here to my config, and after now having that, is in case of an error, I want it to console to, in case of an error, I want it to write to the console and notify me of the error. So I just say failed to connect to the database. So in case of an error, I want it to have it like that. So yeah, and what should be the next thing? So we've already have this configuration file, we've already created the user schema. So maybe the next thing now should be now to have the configuration file running where the server is running from. So I'll just go back here and did we export it? Yeah. Oh yes, we did. So I'll just come here and then I'll import it. So I'll just say import connect to database. Yes, there we have it. And then also let's also import the port because we already have that variable there. So maybe you can do away with this for now. So if you check on our files, so we made changes to the constant. So we had a constant folder here with constant here, the two constant, the Mongo URI and the port. And also we also created these, like the user model, and we did the database configuration. And then now you have there the example.env. So the next thing should be now committing these changes to the database. But before that, I would like to have an endpoint for if, let's say, somebody goes to an existing endpoint, so it should be notified to, so let's call it that way. If somebody goes to an existing, we should have a request there. So if somebody goes to an existing endpoint, we are able to notify him and tell him that the root is not found or the endpoint is not found. So I should have des.status, and then I have a status codes dot not found, I guess. And .json. True. And tell him that there is no such root in our API, root not found. So this, I've just written this to, if somebody goes to, let's say for now we have only this. So I should maybe show you that. What I mean with that is, so for now if we run this, that's why, because we are not running the server for now. That's why we have that error. So if we try to rerun the server, So I have an error on my server. That's what I'm trying to debug.
Hey, what's up?
Oh, okay. I guess the problem is from here. I guess this is the old way of doing it. Should be up to choose. Okay, now the server is running. So just go to I have my compass locally, so the MongoDB compass, and just create a database there, and I'll name it to team task manager, then dev. So I'll come back here on my .env file. So that would be our name of our database that we'll be using. So I guess the next thing is should be now to run the connection string now, because now we have already the URI to our database. So I'll just check. So I'll first clear that, then check on all what I've worked on. So I've installed Mongoose, I've updated my .example.env. So maybe I should have this. Should update this again. So and then also I ran the script to update to create my database. Also, so these are the I created the constant here inside the source folder, and also I created this model. So I'll just add all those changes, and then I'll check for the git status. Add git reset. So the issue is earlier on when I mistakenly added the Mongoose, the third-party modules here. It created an old modules folder, so I should do away with it. So if you look at, so I should do away with this one. So I'll go again so I'll first clear my terminal, then I'll check for the git status, and now everything blue screen. So now I should add, and now I'll go on to create the commit message. So I'll tell it I configured the database connection. That was the most major part in what we did is created the database configuration file at source, at server, then db, then source, then db, then config.ts. Created the user schema, and I created it in the forename. The other thing is install mongoose. What the other thing is created my constant. So that's it. I'll just write and quit. Then I'll push the changes to a remote repository. After that, so the last thing I'm gonna do today is now one last thing I'm going to do is now installing all the packages I'll need for the entire app. Things like cons, cookie parser, what else? So things like calls, cookie parser. So for now we already have express.env. Let me check. So for now we just have this for mongoose HTTP. So I'll just cd to server. So ns, yeah. So and then I'll just install all the other packages I'll need for the entire app. So I'll just say install, and then one of them is calls. Yeah, the other one is helmet. This will help us with the logs. So then also we have Zod for validating our inputs or the request body. Yeah, for validation. And then also I'll have a compression to compress. So I'll have Morgan, I'll have Decrypt, I'll have JSON web token for the auth token. I'll have cookie parser for us to pass our cookies. So what else? Okay, yeah. So for now I'll just have that. And after installing all those, some of them may need the types. So I just go on and install the types for them. So D, and then types, compression, yeah, just install that for now. So and then I'll just go to my entry of the server, and then all those I'll just set them up. So things like calls, element, import element from element, import calls from calls, import cookie parser. From cookie parser, import Morgan from Morgan, and import compression for so these are some of the things that I'll just do before we end the session. So I'll just go here on my, so after creating the app, so app.use, so this for the calls. Guess we need this data when we create the front end. So I'll just comment it, and then for logging HTTP request, I'll just say, so we'll use Morgan. Morgan. I'll just say that. So and after that, so maybe we can set the route layout. So I just have route, and inside the route we start with the version 1, and don't know, I keep creating it as a file instead of a folder. So inside the route, I'll come on and create a folder called version 1. So this will be the version 1 route, and inside it I'll just create index.ts and another file for out.ts, and inside the out.ts I'll just import router from Express. And I'll call this the out router. Const, and I'll just export that, and inside here I'll just say export out.js. Is it? No, it shouldn't be this. I'm wrong. It should be, I should first import the router from Express, then create the version 1 router. So v1 router, and call the router. And maybe we should add an endpoint here for us to test. So okay. So we import the status code from there. Should okay. Then I respond with a JSON file. So and then the message should be welcome to the version 1. So let me do with this. Now let's import what he exported in the out. So and then that was the out data from out.js, and I should have it here now. I'll say v1 router dot use, and let's give this an out, and now pass the out router. And now we can export the version 1 router. And inside the index, we can import it here. So let's bring this one here down, then comment on it. So the other thing we should now have is v1 router from there. Okay, so where should the v1 router be after this? So after here, I should maybe comment and say version 1, version 1 API out, and then here I'll say app.use, and that's the API, then version 1. Now we should call the v1 router. So if now to go try and run the server, it failed to connect to the database. So we have a problem, it didn't connect to the database. So currently I'm working on my database, I'm checking what might be the problem. So let me try this before. Let me decrease this. Still it doesn't connect to that. still it doesn't work like that, the program. So let me check the configuration file once again. So we have at the invalid. So the server looks like connected successfully. Let me console.log. Oh, so everything is working correctly. So the issue was the fallback here, it was not the correct URL to use, or the correct format for MongoDB URL. So that's why the issue. So I just killed the server, or let me first rerun the server and make sure all the endpoint we added here in the version 1 routes are working before you end the stream. So I've just run that, and we try to refresh to go to the server endpoint here. So as you can see, when we go to that endpoint, it gives us success true, welcome to the API. If we try to go to API v1, we get, yeah, welcome to the version 1. So everything looks fine. So I'll just So I'll go back and we try to push our changes. Here we can see we tried to the home endpoint. It went back to, it gave a response of HTTP 200 meaning okay. When we went to this endpoint, it responded with a HTTP response code of 200, which means okay. So I'll just commit the changes. So I'll go to the root directory here, check for the changes. And I'll add all files, then I try and so I'll open my Vim to write my commit message, and I'll say configured, so added packages, and the other thing is v1 routes. So I'll go ahead to give the description. So added on packages needed for food API creation. And the other thing will be now to set up v1 route, make sure the API connected to database. So I'll write and quit, and then I'll git push. And so I'll